Hello and welcome to another jungle tutorial, and in this one we will be taking a look at a very requested video on Evelynn, whose absence in the top junglers video left a lot of people kind of confused as to where her place was in the meta. After a year of being at the top of the tier list for most of the season, people were kind of surprised at her drop off, and the reason for that is we've had a huge change to Summoner's Rift, and as such the strong meta champions like Warwick, like Ashako, will do very well against an Evelynn. Now to show you the examples of where and how she can carry in the Season 10, I will have two games to present to you across two different MMR range, both of which however featuring a master tier jungler, so that you can see the strategies required across all MMR ranges that are necessary for Evelynn to carry in this preseason. And now, as I said, we will have two games to go over that will have similarities in playstyles, but also present different environments where you can see how Evelynn responds to the different requirements to carry. In this game, she's starting blue buff on the blue side, and on the enemy team is a Vi. That can be kind of a difficult matchup to handle, and you know she will be able to gank much better than you pre-6. Of course, you've seen the rune page pop up. That is still the go-to standardized rune page for Evelynn to succeed in solo queue. There are some variations where you can go Dark Harvest, and people are experimenting with some of the other changes, but this is still a very good standardized page. Now, as Evelynn goes from top to bottom, you will end up seeing the Vi go for a nice level 3 gank on the mid lane there. Evelynn can't really match up with that. The goal is still to get 6 as fast as possible. However, even though you're not necessarily looking to spam gank as much, you want to get those 4 clears in, you do need to have some presence. In this case, low HP targets on the bottom side that manage to kill your bottom lane, rotate over there, see if you can pick up a kill. And now because it's bottom lane and Blitzcrank is alive, that fat minion wave cannot be dealt with. You cannot absorb that and last hit it. Your bottom lane showing up again. You want to control your jungle, so you have to leave. But if that is a solo lane gank, that would be a really nice place to freeze it, get some extra added experience to help you get level 6 faster. And that'll be a common thread here as Evelynn goes to do the Krugs and then her red buff. The ganks in the presence you have on the map need to be made based upon your read of what the enemy is doing. Of course, if there's a low HP target like the Draven, you can kill them. Of course, if there's a lane hard pushing with no CC, you can go and kill them, looking for standardized ganking, but you're not going to be doing the kind of thing the Vi is going to be. Here is a good example. There's low HP targets in the mid lane, you're trying to rotate over, but the Blitzcrank cuts you off, and you give a red buff to a Vladimir. That's not very good, so you want to be a bit more intelligent with how you're rotating in the early game. So you do want to try and get at least one gank, one kill in that early phase, let your presence be known. You want to try and secure one of those crabs. Obviously it's understandable if you cannot. You will of course have to read the matchup, but you must, and I repeat, must maintain control of your jungle. That means once this early phase is over, you're going from Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, Krugs, or vice versa, whatever suits you best in terms of what buff you started. The main thing is that you will not be able to solo that dragon by yourself early. You're not in a position to match this Vi as she goes back to base, gets level 6, ults the mid lane, and secures a mountain dragon. It's okay to give up the first 2 drakes as Evelynn because your focus is going to be more so on stacking 4. Because once that 3rd drake is going to spawn, you should be in a position to start having that nice Evelynn impact. Now if you've done all this on that 2nd buff, or at least on that 2nd crab you should be able to hit level 6, get some deep vision control, and now start to look for your ultimate. You want to grab a kill as soon as possible. You'll see here that Evelynn doesn't quite go on the Vladimir. It's a tower dive, he has his pull up, it can be kind of risky. You don't know where the Vi is, you don't want to suicide by any stretch of the imagination. However, on the bottom lane you see the Draven is becoming a little bit presumptuous with his power. His bottom lane, the Draven and Blitzcrank, are absolutely destroying the Jinx bottom lane on the Evelynn's team. The Vi is camping mid lane and destroying the Ryze because he will not ward, and the top lane is, well, top lane. However, once you pick up that kill on the Draven, you go back into your jungle. Be aware that people like the Vladimir will overstay after they get a gank. The Vi ganked in the mid lane, got him another kill, or herself another kill, and the Vladimir again wants to push. He's taking too long, he's low HP, the Vi has disappeared and didn't help him out. The Ryze has returned to lane, and now you can pick up a freebie, whether he runs right into you like in this case, or you rotate to the mid lane, look for those low pickoffs, and try to save your ultimate for the situations where it's really necessary. Now obviously you see the Vi has gone to the top side of the map and she's on the Herald now. You'll also notice that the Evelynn is heading directly to the bottom lane. That's because at 10 minutes her tower has already fallen on the bottom lane. Now this is where Evelynn thrives. Once those first towers are going down, you have more room to use your invisibility, to use your assassination potential, to go and shut down those arrogant enemies who are now definitely going to overpush. And this is where you look for rotations. The focus now is not on that full clear just yet, it's on suppressing the enemy and stopping any gains they're getting. You know, being like a rubber band, you can push back, but you're not actually going to break. Losing a tower or 2, losing the first dragon, These are not the end of the world for Evelynn because you spike so hard in that late game, that mid to late game, you're just looking to hold off and make sure you are fed as you enter those phases. Now, because the game is still quite young, most players, even up until Diamond, won't really know how to translate such a strong early game lead into the mid game. They don't know how to force the issue too much. At the same time, a lot of players in the Evelynn's position, on the Evelynn's team, don't know that they can still actually win this game and that their scaling is very strong. So you killed the Draven, you got the Crab, you drove by mid lane, Vi got the Herald, she's pushing top lane with all that solo experience, you move up with the Fiddlesticks, you grab that kill. I told you, people are gonna get very greedy with their leads and that's when you wanna pounce. Yeah, you give up that second Ocean Dragon, but as I said, that is her current problem at the moment. People don't know how to play from slightly behind, they don't know how to give up a Drake or two and still be relevant in the game. And as you can see in games like these, when these junglers have a few good early ganks, they get all the objectives, they resort to falling back into the jungle and farming quite a lot. They think they're kind of jungling, securing the camps. That's not where the game is actually won, and most junglers are falling into this problem at the moment. Vladimir split pushing on the top side. Well, Vi can farm, Evelynn can go kill Vladimir. There's a mid lane push on the tower, you've got a Fiddlesticks, float on in there with him and grab yourself another kill. If they hang around as low HP targets and you've got one other teammate playing with you, and that's where Evelynn's so good, playing off of what other teammates do, grab yourself another kill and assist. That whole sequence was just Evelynn rotating to picking off people, helping her team, grabbing those kills, denying that push pressure they've had, all while Vi thinks she's done everything correctly getting the objectives. Which is true, but at the same time, you've still got to keep going. You don't fall back into your jungle necessarily. Now let's fast forward a bit. They've gotten that mid lane tower. This is where Evelynn shines even more. As you start to pick up at items, maybe you have that needlessly large rod to help with that burst. Evelynn is excellent at these scrappy fights. If you can burst and annihilate one person or at least help kill one of the main carries, use your ultimate to get out of a situation, maybe save it for a better one. Depends on your read of the game, of course. Because of a regen from that ultimate passive, you are never truly out of a fight. And when you do manage to make a pick or two on greedy enemies, and trust me, there will always be greedy enemies, use that win to set up vision of Round Dragon, because now is when you need to pop off. You need that moment, and all Evelynn players know it, that moment when you just start to have enough damage that everyone begins to fear you. That moment where the kills and the farm you've had finally comes to fruition, and you can actually start to dominate the game by removing at least one person, or at least continually winning those team fights by moving in and out with that passive. As such, you are seeing such a skirmish around the dragon because this is the important dragon. It happens to be a Cloud Drake, which is fantastic for Evelynn's ultimate, and securing that denies the third dragon on the enemy, which of course is vital. You must make sure that they get maximum too. You're not looking to give away more than that. And yes, she gets very dangerously close to death a few times, but you're always able to come in and out of the fight with your camo and with that regen. Now, after you do get that dragon, don't let that be the end of the fight. You know people are greedy, you know their respawn timers are distorted, so you can hang around in bushes and set up chain CC with your Jinx and get even more. These are the backbreaking moves because from that you now have complete control of the game. This is where you transition to that mid to late game phase. You have dragon control, you have pick control, you need to maintain vision control, and whenever anyone is out of place, you can take them out, and you're seeing various clips of that now. And now you know the game is equal and it's basically in your standardized macro assassin gameplay to end up closing the game out. You survived the early phases, you gave up those dragons, you still kept yourself fed with your farm and those rotational pickoffs, and then when the enemy team stalled in their pressure, you punished them by picking them off one by one and getting yourself fed such that that third dragon fight granted you access to the items so that the next time a fight like this happens, you basically have complete control and you can secure Baron and push to win. If you do want to know how to close a game as an assassin in this case, we just did one last week on how to dominate as an assassin. We used Rengar, but the same principles apply, so you can go watch that one. Nonetheless, this is the final scorecard in this game. Now the second game, obviously we won't spend as much time on, but I do want to highlight the common threads even though this early game is a little bit more aggressive and the lanes of this Evelynn were even worse off. However, because this was a Master Tier overall game, there's a bit more intelligence and grouping going around, so how an Evelynn carries in this environment can show you when you do have coordinated teams against you, what's the best way to do so in order to make sure you do come back for that win. Naturally, at this MMR range, there's definitely going to be an Olaf against you. He is quite common and quite strong at the moment. He invades and steals your blue. Evelynn doesn't really mind, you can still do the red Krugs Raptors clear to get level 3, and then because you see the Olaf walking through some vision that your team plays, even though the enemy did get the jump on an early invade, you can collapse on him at the blue. Olaf does get a little bit low, of course he likes to be low, and he does clear fast and has good sustain. So when you take this fight, it's nice that the Quinn came over and helped her. When you're in low MMRs, if your laner isn't going to rotate, because a lot of times they won't, you're better off not actually going for this fight, waiting a little bit. If their enemy top lane comes, you're just going to be 2v1'd and killed. So in that case, you want to take more of the approach of the previous game where you're just looking for those early lane pickoffs, making sure you secure the rest of your jungle. But if you do end up in a situation like this, maybe you have a duo queue, getting these 2 kills is absolutely huge, and that's why this game is a little bit different, because this Evelynn has a lot more of her kills loaded up front than the other game where the Evelynn had most of her kills, around the 10 to 15 minute mark. But much like the previous game, make sure you try and get at least 1 kill, 1 gank off, something like that in the first phase. Go back to base, do a full clear to segment yourself into that second buff spawn, or in this case like the Evelynn, try and look for an invade and a fight that gets you another kill. A little bit of weird pathing by the Olaf, he probably should have hit the plant. Nonetheless, the Evelynn picks up a kill, and again, when it gets very close down to a fight, you don't really want to end up in an auto attack battle with this Viking. The Quinn comes over and just helps out, but again, good kills. The benefits of having, higher elo players around you such that everyone can kind of trust each other and get these kind of close kills. Remember, lower MMRs, be a bit more reserved and measured with these fights that you're taking. But nonetheless, those kills are there to be taken. Low HP targets are always the pickoffs you want, just like we mentioned in the previous game. Now, as you do a full clear down, you get your buffs, you're level 6, don't be afraid to ditch your camps. The enemy bottom lane is way ahead, just like in the last game. Pick off a few kills for yourself. If they are not tower diving and they're at least, sort of pushing in the lane, even if they're in the middle of the lane, as Evelynn, you have the camouflage, please do go and actually gank. Use your ultimate for something good. Don't AFK farm, that's not what you're looking to do. It will not help you out because you cannot solo those dragons. As evidenced here, you need the Trundle to help you do the dragon, so if your Cassiopeia goes up and invades 3v1, thinking she's immortal with a Conqueror, which to be honest, you kind of seems like it half the time, you have to pull off and you won't be able to secure it too quickly. And again, we have another messy fight. Evelynn almost dies, is lucky to get out. Lucian flashes to save from the ultimate, and Evelynn's a little bit lucky in this situation. And therein is the problem with the champion at the moment. These early skirmishes and fights you're seeing, there needs to be a little bit of luck involved, but at the same time, she's just not as good at these skirmishes, at these fights, as the Warwicks in the early game, mid-game power spiking junglers are, and that's why she has a rough time. But of course, Evelynn does indeed like it rough, and the one thing I really don't see a lot of Evelynn mains in the lower MMRs doing, even in the mid MMRs, is sticking around, using their passive to regen and picking off people as they go back to base. It is one of the quintessential Evelynn moves, and the Katarina gets punished for it even in Master Tier. That is where you get your kills. You saw in the last game as well. Overstaying enemies, no control wards, pick them off one by one, throwing your camps in between, and that's how you stack that Magi. That's how you get that Rabadon's decap, and that's where your impact gets felt. And I've talked about this in a lot of my other Evelynn videos. Now that you've really fed, rotating top to mid to bottom, picking off enemies as you go, and of course, if you are able to group and get heralds and dragons, that's excellent. But of course, in this game, as you can see, the Olaf and his team really does have control of the objective measures and is really pushing to try and end the game early. However, when you are fed Evelynn, you can really be the sole reason to stall a game just by making sure that enemy never really has 5 people to push and actually do anything. You just need to stall the game out long enough with your picks, with your map pressure, and that really is so much easier when you have the Infernal map and also potentially getting that Infernal Soul. So once you've done that, hopefully your team is able to group around you. When you start counter pushing, you get those Barons and Dragons. And again, if you're looking, the last video deals with how to close games as an assassin. And just a few quick pointers, you would have seen in the second game, the Evelynn was not as concerned about fully charging that W, just using it to get the slow so that she could in fact hit the E because she was maxing E second. Whereas in the first game, that added range of the W was really useful against that particular team comp, against a Vladimir, to make sure you stun him and get the burst. You want a lot of burst to kill a Vladimir quickly. I of course do prefer the W second max. Lichbane is still cool, going Death Cap second. After that, if you're really fed, is still very good, but do not be afraid of the typical items. Zhonya's, Banshee's Veil against heavy CC team comps, and of course that Void stuff, because we all know Evelynn likes to play with it. And finally, do not forget Morello's against heavy healing team comps. That should still be your core itemization, adapt as necessary, but the Lichbane Deathcare combo is still unmatched in terms of raw, absolutely disgusting damage. Hopefully this helped you just have a little bit of an idea of what you need to do as Evelynn in the early game. Giving up those objectives is okay, just make sure you do have some kind of killer impact in the early phases. Make sure you're getting at least 1 or 2 full clears in between that to get level 6 quickly, and then use your ultimate, use your in and out fighting to stack your kills, and then basically you can hold off as long as necessary by at least always taking 1 or 2 people out of the game such that you can get the objectives necessary to win. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. We do like to reach around 1,000 likes per video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more champion guides and other jungle videos coming your way very soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.